Think about the last time something beautiful stopped you in your tracks. Not social media beautiful, not algorithmically pleasant, actually beautiful, the kind that makes you forget to check your phone. For most of us, it's been a while. We're living in the most materially abundant era in human history, surrounded by more content than any generation before us. And yet, look around. Gray concrete towers that could be anywhere. Music engineered for background noise. Social media feeds designed to agitate, not elevate. But here's the more troubling part. We've stopped noticing. And in some corners of culture, we've begun defending this aesthetic decay. Not as failure, but as progress, as authenticity, as democracy. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this coming over a century ago. He warned that when a civilization loses its connection to beauty, it's not just losing taste, it's losing its capacity for meaning itself. What if the ugliness choking our world isn't random? What if it's a symptom of something deeper, a reflection of what we've collectively become? By the end of this video, you'll see it everywhere. You won't be able to unsee it. The question is, once you see it, what will you do? For most of human history, beauty wasn't decoration. It was evidence of truth itself. The ancient Greeks didn't separate aesthetics from ethics. The mathematical precision of the Parthenon's columns wasn't just craftsmanship, it was proof that the universe operated according to rational, harmonic principles. When they looked at geometry, they saw divine order made visible. Now, we romanticize this. The splendor of Athens was built by a slave-owning society, but the crucial difference isn't the perfection of their civilization. It's that they believed in ideals worth pursuing, however imperfectly. Our crisis isn't that we fail to reach ideals, it's that we've stopped believing such ideals can exist at all. The Renaissance doubled down on this connection. Michelangelo wasn't expressing personal feelings, he was revealing divine order. Leonardo's obsessive notebooks show a man convinced that beauty was literally God's signature on creation. Then came the 20th century and everything shattered. 60 million dead across 2 world wars. How do you paint beautiful landscapes after the Somme? How do you sculpt heroic figures after Auschwitz? The philosopher Theodor Adorno famously questioned whether poetry was even possible after such horror. The artistic response was visceral. If the old beauty couldn't prevent, or worse, had enabled mechanized death, then beauty itself was complicit. Picasso fractured faces because fractured felt honest. Pollock dripped paint because chaos felt real in ways harmony no longer did. To be fair, modernism's initial impulse was often noble, rejecting ornate fakery for honest, functional truth. But what began as necessary corrections swung to destructive extreme. We kept the austerity but forgot the function for the human soul. We stripped away ornament and replaced it with nothing. The story darkens here. What started as trauma response became ideology. By the 1960s, postmodern theory provided the intellectual framework to not just accept aesthetic discord, but to celebrate it as more authentic than beauty itself. Beauty, they argued, was just power in disguise, a tool for enforcing hierarchy and exclusion. The questions were valid, but they led to a troubling conclusion, that beauty itself was the enemy, that any aesthetic standard was really oppression wearing a mask. Nietzsche predicted this over a century before it happened. He called it nihilism, the moment when a culture loses not just God, but the possibility of anything being genuinely higher or better than anything else. When excellence becomes suspicious and mediocrity becomes democratic virtue. The result, beauty no longer shows us who we could become. It only reminds us of hierarchies we've decided to reject, even when those hierarchies pointed upward toward our own potential. Ugliness isn't just about what offends the eye. It's a hydra with multiple heads, each one infecting a different dimension of human life. Aesthetic ugliness is the most visible. Modern architecture reduces buildings to efficient cubes. Boston City Hall, the Barbican Center. Not all modern building is ugly. Norman Foster's Apple Park achieves something approaching grace. The problem isn't that we've lost the ability to create beautiful things, it's that we've stopped prioritizing it. We've accepted ugly as the default, reserving beauty for the occasional prestige project or luxury brand. Fashion oscillates between intentional dishevelment, $300 pre-ripped jeans, and hypersexualized excess with little room for dignified elegance. On TikTok, the clean girl aesthetic lasted 3 months before being replaced by mob wife aesthetic, which lasted 2. We've gamified appearance into content cycles. Music streaming has homogenized pop into a narrow sonic range optimized for algorithmic playlists, not genuine engagement. The Spotify sound, compressed dynamics, similar tempos, predictable structure, dominates because it performs well in shuffle mode. Curation has been replaced by optimization. Moral ugliness operates in boardrooms and political offices. The pharmaceutical executive who triples insulin prices while testifying about innovation. The politician who votes against disaster relief, then poses for photos distributing water bottles when cameras arrive. Notice how we celebrate certain forms of ruthlessness now. The savage clapback that destroys someone gets millions of views. The hustler who exploits others becomes a role model. We've developed an impressive vocabulary for making vice sound like virtue. Unapologetic, no filter, keeping it real. Psychological ugliness might be most pervasive. Our capacity for sustained attention has collapsed. Research shows that by 2023, the average person's focused attention span dropped below 8 seconds in digital context, not because we're less intelligent, but because we've rewired our neural architecture for constant stimulation. Everything must be immediate, ironic, loud. When was the last time you sat with a single thought for an hour without checking your phone? We've locked ourselves out of the wavelengths where beauty operates, because beauty requires what our culture has trained us to resent: stillness, sustained attention, presence. Cultural ugliness manifests in what we elevate and bury. Reality television that celebrates dysfunction. Social media algorithms that discovered outrage generates 6 times more engagement than insight. The thoughtful, the nuanced, the quietly excellent struggle to be heard over the cacophony of the extreme. But here's the nuance we need to acknowledge. Beauty hasn't disappeared. Independent bookstores still curate thoughtfully. Small music labels release albums of stunning craft. Architects like Shigeru Ban design refugee shelters that are both functional and beautiful. A thriving subculture of makers and artists continues fighting for beauty, often against economic pressure. The problem isn't beauty's absence, it's that mainstream culture has systematically devalued it. Beauty exists in the margins, while ugliness dominates the center. Then there's the 5th head, spiritual ugliness. Not about religion, about the loss of the transcendent impulse itself. The sense that something higher beckons, that our lives could point beyond mere survival toward meaning. When this dies, we forget why anything matters beyond immediate pleasure or pain. We forget why we ever tried to create beauty in the first place. There's a documented phenomenon called aesthetic fatigue, the numbing that occurs when sensory systems face relentless overstimulation. Marketing researchers estimate we encounter between 4,000 to 10,000 brand exposures daily. Our brains didn't evolve for this, they adapt by going numb. Beauty suffers most from this numbing. You cannot skim beauty, you cannot rush through a sunset, you cannot multitask through reading Rilke. You cannot truly experience a Gothic cathedral while checking email. Ugliness makes no such demands. A shocking image penetrates instantly. It requires no preparation, no cultivation of taste, no sustained focus. Ugliness flatters our worst instincts instead of challenging us to transcend them. Research backs this up. Studies show people in hospital rooms with views of natural beauty recover faster than those facing brick walls. Students in classrooms with windows and natural light perform measurably better than those in windowless rooms. We're not just aesthetically but physiologically harmed by ugly environments. But there's something darker at work, something the psychologist Carl Jung might have recognized. We've performed an impressive sleight of hand. We've redefined ugliness as authenticity. we've convinced ourselves that rough, unpolished, chaotic is somehow more real than refined, intentional, beautiful. Why? Because true beauty makes implicit demands. It suggests distance between what we are and what we could be. It judges us by its mere existence. And we've developed a defense mechanism. If nothing is beautiful, no one can be better. Everyone gets leveled to comfortable mediocrity, a seductive equality of lowered expectations. Philosopher Roger Scruton observed that beauty is vanishing, not because we lack ability, but because we fear the judgment beauty implies. To call something beautiful is to make a claim. This matters more, this is higher, this points toward truth. In our relativistic age, such claims feel dangerous, even oppressive. It's safer to embrace ugliness, which makes no claims except its own existence. Safer to call the pursuit of beauty elitist than to admit we've lost the courage to pursue excellence ourselves. But wait, is this fear of judgment actually wisdom? What if our embrace of ugliness isn't a failure, but a form of progress? To be intellectually honest, we need to consider the strongest possible case against everything we've just said. The strongest criticism goes like this. Your golden age of beauty was built on exclusion. Classical beauty standards reflected the tastes of wealthy elites, usually white, usually male, usually European. What you call ugliness is actually the messy but necessary process of including voices historically excluded from defining what counts as beautiful. Brutalist architecture wasn't aesthetic nihilism. It was a socialist response to housing crises, attempting to provide affordable homes for working people. Ugly street art and graffiti gave voice to communities shut out of prestigious galleries. Hip-hop started in poverty and became one of the most culturally vital art forms of our time. Your ugliness is someone else's authentic expression. Moreover, maybe what seems ugly now is just unfamiliar. Every artistic revolution faces initial resistance. Impressionist paintings were considered ugly compared to academic realism. Jazz was called noise. Stravinsky's Rite of Spring caused a riot. Perhaps we're just watching aesthetic evolution unfold, and our discomfort says more about our rigidity than about the art itself. These are serious objections deserving serious responses. First, acknowledging that historical beauty was often exclusionary doesn't mean beauty itself is oppressive. It means we applied it poorly. The solution isn't abandoning excellence, it's recognizing it in more places. Japanese wabi-sabi finds beauty in imperfection. Islamic geometric patterns achieve stunning effects without human representation. African textiles combine colors. Western painting once deemed clashing. Beauty doesn't have to mean European neoclassicism, but these traditions share something crucial: intentionality. The belief that how things look matters spiritually, not just functionally. Second, democratizing access doesn't require pretending all outputs are equally valuable. You can believe everyone should have access to instruments without believing every sound is equally worthwhile. Standards and access aren't opposites, they're complementary. Third, there's a difference between unfamiliarity and ugliness. When Impressionism was new, it still pursued beauty through different means. Much contemporary art doesn't pursue beauty at all. It pursues shock, provocation, deconstruction. Valid pursuits, but not the same thing. The real test is intention. Are we creating environments and objects that elevate human experience, or are we simply accepting the cheapest, fastest, most efficient option and calling it democratic? A hospital painted in calming colors isn't elitist, it's evidence-based care. A public park with thoughtful landscaping isn't oppression, it's treating citizens as if their daily experience matters. Every civilization gets the aesthetics it deserves. Athens built the Parthenon because they believed in excellence. Medieval Europeans built Chartres because they believed in heaven. Renaissance Florence produced impossible beauty because they believed in human potential. What do our aesthetics say we believe in? Fast fashion designed to disintegrate after one season. music optimized by AI to hit dopamine receptors without meaning, airline seats engineered to maximize discomfort just short of lawsuit-triggering injury. We've built a world that looks exactly like our implicit philosophy: materialistic, functional, extractive, disposable. It's not that we can't create beauty. We still have the knowledge, technology, resources. What we've lost is the will. Because beauty isn't neutral. Beauty makes metaphysical claims. It says, this matters. This is how things should be. It points beyond itself toward ideals. And ideals are dangerous in a culture that's lost faith in anything beyond immediate experience. The philosopher Iris Murdoch argued that beauty trains us in unselfing, the difficult art of directing attention away from our egos toward something genuinely other. To be arrested by beauty is to forget yourself temporarily, to acknowledge that something matters more than your immediate desires. No wonder we resist it. Our age is defined by aggressive self-focus, disguised as self-actualization. Everything must orbit the self. Beauty dethrones the self even momentarily, and that feels like loss rather than liberation. Previous generations built cathedrals they'd never see completed. We optimize for algorithm updates that change monthly. Our entire aesthetic reflects a civilization that thinks in news cycles, not centuries. Ugliness is the aesthetic of a people who've stopped believing anything endures. If nothing lasts, why build to last? If no objective standards exist, why pursue excellence? If beauty is just subjective preference, why not choose convenient ugliness? The ugliness around us isn't a failure of talent or resources. It's a failure of will. The will to believe that what we create matters, that how we live leaves marks on eternity, that beauty is worth the sustained effort it demands. Our ancestors believed in spiritual hierarchy, not social hierarchy dividing people, but the idea that some things genuinely are higher than others, that beauty is closer to truth than ugliness, that excellence matters more than ease. Without that belief, all we can do is manage our descent and call it progress. What's strange about our moment? Ugliness has always existed. What's unprecedented is that we've started defending it as virtue. We've developed elaborate justifications for why ugliness is actually more honest, more inclusive, more real than beauty. But what if we have it backwards? When beauty dies in a culture, something irreplaceable dies with it. Not just pleasant experiences, but the map toward transcendence itself. A sunset doesn't need to be beautiful for evolutionary purposes. Music doesn't need to move us for survival. Mathematical equations don't need elegance to function. Yet beauty keeps appearing anyway, gratuitous, unnecessary, pointing beyond itself toward meanings we sense but cannot fully name. The German poet Rainer Maria Rilke wrote, "Beauty is nothing but the beginning of terror we're still just able to bear." He understood that beauty terrifies us precisely because it reveals the gap between what is and what could be. So here we are, living in perhaps the ugliest age humanity has deliberately constructed. Not because we lack resources, but because we lack faith that building beautifully matters. But nothing is permanent. Cultures that forget beauty can remember it. The question isn't whether beauty still exists. It does, stubbornly in margins and unexpected places. The question is whether we can recover the capacity to perceive it. Nietzsche said that to transform ourselves, we must first become who we truly are beneath the noise. The restoration of beauty begins not with grand projects, but with individual perception, a shift from consumption to presence, from criticism to appreciation. It starts with something simple. The next time you feel that flicker of connection to something beautiful, a well-designed object, music that gives you chills, a quiet moment in nature, don't dismiss it. Don't deconstruct it. Don't photograph it for validation. Just sit with it. Let it, in Iris Murdoch's words, unself you. In that small act of courageous attention, you're refusing to accept ugliness as inevitable. You're remembering that the world is exactly as beautiful as we have the courage to perceive it to be. And that courage, that willingness to believe beauty still matters, still calls, still shows us who we could become, might be the most radical act of resistance we have left. If this video changed how you see the world, consider sharing it. Not for the algorithm, but because ideas that matter spread through people who care. Thanks for watching.